Hey guys, this is Tyler here, and I'm going to talk with everyone why it's best often if you're in a relationship or a marriage, and if a girl breaks up with you, you should just move on. In most cases, this is, I think, the best way to approach this situation. Many guys here, obviously, I would say most guys that are beyond age 30 have probably gone through at least one breakup, and many guys also have gone through a divorce, especially older guys here. So most of us have experience with this kind of situation. And I think especially the first time around, it's often very traumatic. It feels very heavy, of course. And eventually, though, I think, especially if someone goes through this at least a few times, you often can rebound much quicker because you already know what to anticipate. But I've seen more recently, or maybe this was a little old school, there's videos and there's articles where guys are told you can go back and try be with a former girlfriend, even former wife in some cases. And I think this is often ridiculous. If you have a friend who's a guy and they essentially reject you, they blow you off, they don't want to have anything to do with you, how likely is it that if you were to reconnect with them, you would have a lot of respect for them like you did before? You could probably at least accept an apology. You could come to some kind of compromise, but there's very little likelihood that you would actually go back to the state that you were at before. And I think it's just the same, honestly, if you're with a girlfriend, with a wife, even more so, because this is probably a little deeper, and this probably affects a guy a lot more than even a friend, especially if it's like a girlfriend or a wife that you've been with for several years. It's just really hard. And often I think too, you see many situations where a guy, say, tries to carry on, there's a breakup that occurs, carry on with the relationship, and then they have to go through the defeat again. Often then the girlfriend will break up again with them, and it just you feel just as much pain. So what's the point of feeling the same pain, probably even more, the second, third, or fourth time around? And really, if a girl rejects you the first time, they're probably going to do it again. It's just like that expression about once a cheater, always a cheater. And in many cases, if they do break up, it's because there's like another guy in the picture, or they may already be cheating with another guy. So it's not, in the day and age that we live in nowadays, I think it's almost always this case if the girl is under, or woman's under age 30. It very much, us men are very replaceable, and there's another one often that comes along to replace the former. Now note too that just like in financial world or in business, there's that opportunity cost. So if you end up going down this path with the same gal, and they're likely to repeat the same bad behavior over and over again, you're going to sacrifice time that you could have put into another, trying to find another relationship or pursuing other more important aspects of life. You perhaps are missing out on better options, better scenarios. And if the person has this little respect and regard for you, how likely is it that they're going to be that much more respectful of you, say, in 5 years, if you are somehow still with them? Very little chance, honestly, of that happening. Many guys, too, would be surprised. Like when I lived in Russia, for example, typically if a person breaks up with a guy there, there's no going back. I mean, if it's the guy that breaks up, yeah, that can happen. But often that won't even happen. If it's the gal, almost no chance. Unless the guy has substantially more SMV than the gal. But even in that case, you'd be surprised it often doesn't occur. We have to consider here, we're talking about a primarily peasant-based culture, peasant-based society. Anyone who's lived in a European-based peasant culture slash society understands there's some things that are a lot different. These might be European people, they will look European, but certain things are vastly different than what you see with Western Europeans. And so often, a breakup happens there, it's over. There's no, which is maybe good because as a guy, that there's no, like, you're not going to even think about putting any effort into trying to rekindle. And sadly enough, there are many guys there where they'll say they've had a girlfriend for a few years and then the girlfriend breaks up with them. They try really hard to rekindle and almost never works. And guys, they're will sometimes put extraordinary amount of effort and often it doesn't go anywhere. And just like in many Western countries, girl often has a replacement. There's no question that there's often another guy that's came along. So this mentality of trying to be with the gal again, what's the point? Like I mentioned before, if you're being rejected, no different. If you're in a friendship setting or in any kind of business setting or something. I remember when I was in school and I had teachers where they treated me like total dirt, like total crap. And I put up with them. Some of my most difficult teachers I had, like in high school. And I put up with them and really gave all my effort and ended up often coming out with those teachers with mediocre grades. There were a few of them extremely disrespectful to me. They were disrespectful to other students. Some of the stuff they did and said, I don't think teachers now could do this. This was some years ago, but this was also in a Catholic college prep school. So rules were a little different. Teachers could say a lot more than probably in a public school. And so these teachers, though, I lost most respect for in the sense of them as people, them as I would never, if I were to meet them again, I wouldn't have much respect for them. Because yes, I was technically a teenager. I was in a subordinate position. They were authority. But I just lost respect because to me, sometimes it didn't just seem like they were acting the way they were in a student-teacher relationship. They were acting, went deeper, this went personal. And I think of that there was no intimacy involved there. This was very like professional, very like business-like almost. And a couple of them I absolutely could not stand. By the time I was done with them, I was so tired of them, I did not want to see their faces again. And even one or two of them to this day, I still have very bad opinions of. I can't see past that. And so when I think of this, like, if that's how it was with like a teacher, why should it be any different with a woman, a girl who's deceptive, who's manipulative, and why would I want to be with them again? And also, if a guy's like in a relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, especially in Western country, when you obviously go further in a relationship, there's probably going to be more resources on the line. There's more likely, there's possibly property, assets in Canada, US, etc. You could have spousal support, alimony to deal with. All these assets are on the line. Many guys here probably wouldn't donate a lot of their assets to another sibling or a parent when they were to, say, separate. So can you imagine someone that despised you, a woman that absolutely could not like stand you or respect you, giving her like half the assets? It makes no sense. And that's why I say, if you start thinking it in this way, it's a no-brainer. You wouldn't ever want to be with that person again. You wouldn't have anything to do with them. People often forget that day and age we live in, these are very business-like often. How marriages are often evaluated, it's very business-like. You can't forget that. In other countries, yes, less so. But just like if you had a very deceptive business partner, someone you didn't trust, you probably wouldn't pursue something very long with them. And you probably wouldn't be going back to them after, say, they separated from you and went their own way. Same thing, honestly, with a woman. you probably aren't going to go back to them and carry on. It's pointless. Chances are she's done it before with someone else, or she'll do it after this. It's not usually one and done kind of situation. These type of women usually have these kind of, there's certain patterns you can look at and you'll see like parallels and with other guys, and it's a very continuous. It's not like just a one and done. There's often a lot of correlation with these kind of behaviors. It's very important, as many guys in the manosphere have said, to look at the actions of women. Don't look at what they say. Look at their patterns of behavior, especially the patterns. Now, there's patterns, for example, where you can see like correlations. For example, many women, or more so girls, will say leave these voice messages to like WhatsApp. I noticed this in Eastern Europe. There's this happens sometimes, and often these kind of gals, like, they'll send you a voice message shortly after meeting them. Now, I'm not saying this is always the case, but my experience and people I know, my brother, some of his friends, typically these are girls that are insincere, they're not genuine. And just, this might be kind of a side note, just note this, guys, if this happens, you meet a gal, immediately they leave a voice message. I'm not talking about like this is your girlfriend, this is the gal you've gone out with for some time. It's probably a bad sign in Eastern Europe. These are usually deceptive, they're lying type of females. Now, I'm not saying that message or that voicemail, like that makes them deceptive. I mean, guys leave other people messages. I leave family members often messages, and close friends of mine. That it's very different though with guys. And what you'd have to think is that why would they be sending you a voice message right after like meeting them? It doesn't make sense. I mean, a guy wouldn't probably be doing that to another guy if they had just met them. It's the same way. And so there's patterns, there's cues in the behaviors, and this is just an example. And it's the same thing with the gal that leaves you. They seek another guy, or they're already with another guy. Often these gals have other patterns you can see in their own lives, and generally these are very deceptive, very manipulative type of gals. And usually they end up very unhappy down the road. We just saw that one gal in St. Petersburg, the OnlyFans one, that she committed suicide. And most likely she jumped from her 20th or 30 story high rise in St. Petersburg she's living in. It's no surprise to me. She's 29, and I can assure you that type of gal had been playing and screwing around with a lot of guys. She was probably very deceptive, very manipulative. Furthermore, she probably wasn't making hardly any money from OnlyFans. Most of her money, I would almost guarantee, was probably made through prostitution, just based on what I know about Russia, what I know about OnlyFans. And these stories often, they only reveal part of the big picture. Now, one of the other things I found odd was the fact that why did her ex-boyfriend have to use the GoFundMe and collect donations for her funeral cause? Why couldn't her family? Why couldn't she, if she was supposedly doing well from OnlyFans as a quote model? Why couldn't he? I mean, and so it pretty much indicates she wasn't making that much money. She was just selling herself basically for pennies. And this is the sad state of a lot of these gals today. Important to note, like, these type of gals probably have had great chances with decent quality guys. And I guarantee you she just passed up a lot of these guys and she went down this destructive path. And now she's not alive. So, I mean, she ended her life pretty quickly. But the key here is to don't go back to another girl that's just broken up with you, or divorce in worst cases. Maybe if you have children involved and it's more complex, maybe. But Especially if it's just a girlfriend, there's no kids. In most cases, you don't need to go back. Just best to move on and don't look back. And especially for guys who have been with a certain gal for a long time, or who where it's for the first time around, this can be very difficult to stomach, but it's often the best way to approach this matter. And you'll probably realize that this was a good choice down the road. So that's my take on this topic, and I look forward to your feedback below. Thank you.